So picking up this discussion that Fred started with, how many books are enough? And I thought that was a really good way to raise some of these questions about what I've been terming book culture and how book culture could relate to YouTube. I think Fred's issue of how many is perhaps a fun way to come at some of this. That the origin of writing was largely used to help people remember, like the way that you'd maybe do a shopping list. You'd write stuff down so that you wouldn't forget it. Or the way I've seen some people, they'll write notes down for what they want to say when they're going to speak here. Or the way that people will plan out what they're going to do in advance and they scatter notes to help them remember when they're going to have to remember it. That's a very different paradigm than what we mean by book culture. Book culture has, I guess, a logic of committing something into history where the writing down of a book, it's sort of, it came out of scriptorium. Scriptorium were these places where the local copyist or the scribe would be there, and a master would be teaching off of the person would teach, and the student was basically an in-house copyist publisher who would, manuscripts were produced, and they were tropistic. They would introduce embellishments and slight changes, and it wasn't until the book as a mass-printed machine, object of the machine, the first real mass-produced commodity, that I guess created this uniformity that we think of a book. But the book was a product of a desire, I guess, for historicity itself. To get into history, I think, is very different than to be in a kind of now where you just want to access it. That is, when people think about books, what they're really trying to do is think about books that you reread. A book, as a book, is something that you want to reread. I mean, my books, I'll take them and I will write, and if I'm doing a certain kind of reading with them, I will have a certain color of pen. I'll do a first reading maybe through with just a fine blue pen. Then for a project, I might use a black pen, so I can have an awareness of a certain reading, and I can make various notes in the text all the way as I'm going through it. That and if I return to it, a really good text, I'll return to again and again and again. I don't know if we return again and again and again to a YouTube. The logic of information in the electric age is so different than in manuscript culture, book culture. Book culture is slow and it's one of return. Like, just as a quick example, the electric age is the age in which we give praise for speed reading. We go, oh, look at you, you're a quick reader, that's so impressive. We want to commend people for being a quick reader. It's very odd, whereas I think in book you commend slow, careful study. The ability to slow down. I can hear it sometimes when people read. They're reading, if they read aloud, they're reading as if they're scanning for information. Their eyes just glaze over it as if they just want to get to the end and get the point said. They're not seeing, I guess, the slow, steady articulation to be part of the reading. I wonder what impact that will have as that becomes more and more pervasive, more and more dominant. See, I think people who've already read quite a bit, who can stand upon all the books that they've read, they have difficulty trying to see what their mind was like before all that happened to them. This is one of the most difficult things. I think it's really easy to stand around. It was one of the funnier things is there's a TED Talk, and I'm not sure who did it. I watched a little bit of it, and it was on capitalism. But one of the funniest parts was there was a gentleman there giving this talk, and he has Rand's the Fountainhead. And he, at one point, as if he's making a statement, he pulls the book out, shows it, and throws it down to the ground. I mean, it's one of the funniest things. Like, the whole time I'm thinking, as someone who's studied rhetoric, who studies, performance, I I can't help it. What did he think that meant? What was he imagining other people would imagine that meant? It was one of the weird. Did he think that's like a big book? It's so funny. This question of, first, do we have patience for book culture? Do we have patience for a culture that for books which need rereading, and rereading is part of what we mean by the book. A book to which you can return again and again. There are many books that I'd say, if people haven't looked at it, go look at McLuhan's Understanding Media. That's worth a good study again. So is Ong's Orality and Literacy. Those are some brilliant books worth reading again and again. Go look at Becker's work. Go look at some Denial of Death. Go look at Escape from Evil. I think those would be wonderful books. And I think once you read it, you're going to want to read it again and again until it becomes part of you. This notion of that book culture becomes part of you, it becomes part of you because you return again and again to it. And there's a precision in, I think, the way your mind learns to grow as it's disciplined by that text, especially when it sits still and you can look at it all. It's easy to flip back and forth between pages. Like if I study a book, I can take it and I can write everything out, I'm taking notes in it. And by the time I get to the end of, say, a 30 or 40 page chapter that's complex and has subdivisions, I can really quickly glance back and forth just by a couple of page turns, and in about 2 or 3 minutes almost have a visual, like a topographical representation of the arguments. It's so hard to do that here on YouTube. To try to think of the visual arrangement itself as part of what you're learning as you learn to subcompartmentalize, to hierarchicalize knowledge, to see what's relevant, what's an example, how do things fit on YouTube, unless it's I guess, a real professionally done, high glossy educational video done, by some person who's paid to do it, and that's their sort of job. I think it's even there, it's hard to see how much the difference between what a text allows one to do and I mean a book. See, even this when people say, oh, there's text here, people write comments. Yeah, but these comments aren't comments that you want to go back to. They're comments like newspaper. I'm not saying, yeah, let's get back to newspaper culture. I think the electronic age may be replacing newspapers. I don't think it can replace books. The people there are people who are just so deeply affected by books that they don't even notice how much their minds were made possible by all the things that they've read. There are certainly lots of people who are witty and crafty who don't read, but they're affected by the structure of literacy in the culture, right? There's so much work on what's called lay literacy, the sort of social and or psychological organization, the patterns of affiliation that come around through literate engagement, everything from the way that shelves are organized in grocery stores to the way streets are arranged. There's so many, alphabeticy of priority, of what comes first, and of organization of knowledge. See, I think the book allows for a visual organization of knowledge that, it seems anyway, like the stream and flow of conversation, as even really heady conversation. I'm not sure that it allows for a return, and that I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm saying it's something very different, and it's very different for someone who stands in literacy to watch how fun it is to have cocktail party conversation after they've done all their homework, and when they're really well read. Those people who have never really been well read, how will they produce the stimulating cocktail party conversation? Where will that stuff come from? Okay, well, thanks.